All right. So we have Andrea Frisch. Is that how you say your last name? I wrote that first. From Wiscorps. She, I'm just going to read the bio that I included in the newsletter, just to give you guys kind of an idea of where she's coming from. Andrea's called La Crosse community home for almost 10 years. She grew up in the Northwoods, regularly recreating with her family in Wisconsin state parks and national forests. I feel like we've talked a lot about Antigo.
Yes, I'm originally from Antigo, which is in northeastern Wisconsin, home of Wisconsin's state soil. Antigo silt loam also has probably one of the, I don't know if it's the longest road segment of the Ice Age Trail, but geez, I think it's at least like 25 to 30 miles in Langlade County. Yeah, Antigo, woot. A
1,200 miler wannabe or whatever.
Yes.
So Andrea has a bachelor's degree in therapeutic recreation and a master's degree in recreation management, both from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. She's a certified therapeutic recreation specialist and bases her practices in the community. So, you know, no big deal. She's just kind of like super awesome. She dedicated creating greater access to nature and connecting Conservation Corps members to opportunities in the conservation movement. When she's not at Wiscorps, she is regularly enjoys practicing yoga, birding, hiking, skiing, and camping with her partner Ryan and his service dog Wally, which is a black lab. And
yeah.
Andrea is also a personal friend. I met her when I attended the first inaugural event of Women of the Wild Midwest. And we just did like a bunch of workshops and activities and stuff with women from like all over the Midwest, and it was super cool. But now I'm going to hand it over to her.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Felicia. Like Felicia said, my name is Andrea, and I use the pronouns she and her. And yeah, I guess like my webcam is being a little finicky the last couple of days. I don't know if it was like the false spring and it's just like I'm going to stop working or things like that. I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. All right. So you should be able to see accessible trails in Wiscorps. All good to go. Everything is False Spring's fault. I agree. Although I'm really enjoying the extra hour of light that we get in the evenings. But anyways, so tonight I'm going to talk about a little bit about accessible trails because I'm very passionate about accessible trails and providing and maintaining access to nature, specifically for the disabled community, as well as talk about Wiscorps, which is one out of a few conservation corps in Wisconsin, and just kind of talking about what a conservation corps is, as well as you know, potential job opportunities and things like that for this summer and beyond. So right now I am calling from Wiscorps headquarters, or the Myrick Park Center. And I would like to acknowledge that Wiscorps and the Myrick Park Center occupy the stolen lands of the Ho-Chunk, Dakota, and Menominee people. We honor the people who care for the land, past, present, and future, recognizing our shared history and this connection. Join us as we learn better to care for each other and the land. The Myrick Park Center is located in La Crosse, Wisconsin. We are on the shores of a 1,000-acre marsh. So walking in today for the office, I heard honking geese and mallards and other waterfowl that are making their way north as part of our migration season, which is really awesome. Since there's only 3 people on the call, I was going to have this be a little bit more interactive part. And we could totally do that if y'all want to. So I guess Sarah, Felicia, and Lisa, feel free to answer this question in the chat or unmute yourself. But what is your favorite thing to do in nature, and where is your favorite place to recreate outdoors?
We could probably do this popcorn style just to make it less awkward.
Yeah.
I'll start. My favorite thing to do in nature mostly is just to walk, whether that's backpacking or hiking. And my favorite place to recreate is like anywhere where I'm surrounded by trees. I just really love them. And I'll popcorn to Lisa.
Sorry, finding the unmute button. My favorite things to do in nature are probably backpacking and climbing. And I feel like I'm always on either the Ice Age Trail or at Devil's Lake if we're talking about local spots. So I guess Sarah.
So my favorite thing to do in nature is to backpack with my husband and our dogs. Okay, well, our dogs haven't actually been on a backpacking trip yet, but they're really fun to hike with. And my favorite place to do it in is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, because I think it's the most beautiful place, especially Lake Superior.
Oh, I gotta love the UP. That's so great. My favorite thing to do in nature is to, like everything, hike. The really big thing that I've been getting into recently is nature photography and incorporating that with birding. So like this morning I was out on Lake Island, Alaska, which is a lake right by my house, and looking at all of the different waterfowl that are migrating, like redheads and common mergansers, and a bunch of other ducks and eagles. And my favorite place to recreate outdoors, I think honestly, like all of your answers really resonated with me. I really love Devil's Lake State Park. Although I'm not a big fan of crowds. And I also like to be surrounded by any type of plants, whether it be, really large cathedral pines and older stands of trees that you can find in northern Wisconsin and in the UP, all down to tall grass prairie, which is a landscape that we have around La Crosse. Why I ask this question is, first of all, just to kind of, talk about our great things, recreation and nature, but then also to propose this other question for you. More specifically, at your favorite place, have you noticed, or did you notice, if that place is accessible? And whether that is, accessible for parking or for someone to access the trails, or is even, the maps that you use understandable and accessible? And just kind of reflecting on that, because that's sometimes something that we don't really think about on when we go out ourselves. So I think about it a lot. And why I think about it a lot is my partner is disabled. So you can see us in this picture here on this boardwalk in the gorgeous aspens behind us at Wilderness on Wheels. And I'll get to that a little bit later about accessible trails. But I, since meeting and having a relationship with a disabled person, as well as with my academic background in therapeutic recreation, I've had a lot of focus on how to make or being aware of how our nature spaces have been accessible. So about me, kind of like Felicia said, I am work for Wiscorps as a marketing director, as well as I teach for UW Milwaukee in their therapeutic recreation program. I'm a care worker, so I help out Ryan with his personal cares. I'm also involved in the Wisconsin Warrior Power Soccer team, Power Wheelchair Soccer. I love adaptive sports too, and I could do an entire presentation on all of those fun things. I'm also a volunteer with Horse Sense, which is a therapeutic riding agency in La Crosse. And then most recently, I am on the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Disability Advisory Council, which is a really neat council. Has, don't get me stuck. Yes, I love sled hockey too, Sarah. Oh my gosh. Have you played? Because like, it's amazing. Although I always feel like I'm gonna stab my hand or something like that. Anyways, look up sled hockey if you don't know what I'm talking about. Look it up on YouTube. We have the best, the United States has the best, most dominant sled hockey team in the world currently. Anywho, so I professionally and personally really look at, you know, creating accessibility and access to the environmental movement and to nature and trails and things like that. So I wanted to go, sorry, I'm using PowerPoint. I usually don't do that. Talk about accessible trails. So popcorning again, what do you think makes an accessible trail?
I can start again. Accessibility is like, I don't know, it can be defined on a lot of different levels. So like the first level is like, can you even get to the trail? And I know a lot of the trails that I like to do are pretty remote, so they're not very accessible as far as like transportation, or like some people just can't. I mean, there's like, if you're in a wheelchair, you just like can't get back there. So that's another level of like defining accessibility, is like, once you get to the trail, like, can you actually recreate on it? And
Exactly.
I'll popcorn to Sarah this time.
Yeah, I think I would definitely like mirror what Felicia said, but also like, I don't know, I made it like a point in my life to like kind of like be able to at least understand maps, like specifically because I don't drive because of my epilepsy. So I always try to make sure like I know how to read maps, and like if there's like some crazy maps, or like if they're like really sun damaged, I've always found that is like such an issue at trailheads. Like if somebody who like frequents someplace often has a hard time with a map, then like are new people gonna even want to try it because like they're gonna be scared to get lost and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
of course, I will popcorn to Lisa if she would like to say anything.
Yeah. I guess I would just add on to that, like, it's pretty hard to just call any trail accessible because you don't know what people need or what, you know, what makes it accessible for each individual. So I guess I would just tack on that it really depends on who you're saying it's accessible to. And then echo what everyone else has said, of course.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you know, I think one group, if you don't follow them on Instagram and social media, is Disabled Hikers. That's a great group to get more information on accessible trails and, you know, accessible outdoor experiences. Actually, the founder of Disabled Hikers, their name is Soren, actually published an accessible trail book for the state of Washington, and that recently came out in the last couple of months. But yeah, like, what makes this an accessible trail? You know, like, can you get to it, right? Sometimes, you know, transportation can be a barrier to getting out on the trail. Also of like having the skills to do that, of like map reading and wayfinding. You know, sometimes I mean, like, I like maps and directions and things like that. And sometimes even I get turned around with maps. And then also of just like what the trail is made out of. is a really, it's very different for people who use manual wheelchairs. So individuals that like push their wheelchairs with their hands versus a power wheelchair user. And that, you know, like those different trail surfaces, and there's actually like specific directions. And if you would like to learn more, it's the Forest Service is actually one of the leading departments in accessibility for outdoor spaces and things like that. If you want to learn more about how to make everything from a pit toilet to a picnic table to a viewing observation platform to trails, the Forest Service has a big guidebook on it, which is pretty neat. And there's actually, you know, like sometimes, you know, when we talk about accessible trails, you know, there's a stigma in some members of the outdoor community of like, well, we're going to have to pave all of the trails and put handrails on all of them. And, you know, it's just going to, you know, ruin the environment and nature and things like that for accessibility. And that's really not the case. And, you know, not speaking for the disabled community as a whole, but for the majority of disabled outdoor enthusiasts and hikers that I know, it's like that's not the expectation. And it's also not the expectation of like, you know, we need to make all trails easy or all trails accessible. But we should be advocating for more accessible trails so that everybody can have an opportunity to get out into nature and enjoy our wonderful natural resources that we have in the Midwest. Also, like just to point out when I was talking about paved versus natural surface, not service, oops, trail, is so your natural surface trail is like a crushed limestone or gravel. There's actually a specific screening size if you really want to get into like trail building specifics with accessible trails. And then there's always having it paved and things like that. The Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't have some things specifically on trails, but they do have other, that's the federal law, by the way, of how to make things accessible. They do have other guidelines for recreation spaces, but the U.S. Forest Service, and I'll share some of the resources after we go through the presentation to just kind of share with them if you're interested in learning more. One place is really cool is the Copper, well, I guess like cool and not cool. So the Copper Falls accessible trail, and actually this bridge is less than a half a mile away, and it might actually, and I can't remember if this bridge is a part of the North Country Trail, because the North Country Trail does come into Copper Falls State Park, and I know that you can, it comes off of this trail. This is the Doughboy Trail in Copper Falls State Park. If you haven't been, pretty sure it is. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Lisa. It's a great, awesome Midwest waterfall park, and it has a little bit of an accessible trail, but as you can see here, the trail ends pretty abruptly and kind of weirdly. But of course, that does not stop my partner, Ryan. He could care less about that and continued on the trail at will, and to the anxiety-provokingness for me. But that's kind of the, you know, a lot of times when we're thinking about accessibility and things like that, it's just like, okay, well, the trail has ended because we're not going to maintain the water bars like we should, or we're not going to, you know, create a boardwalk or anything like that. So we're just going to end it randomly here. And then, you know, your family members that can, you know, ambulate and walk can continue on, but you who might be using a wheelchair or need this trail to be accessible, you have to stop at this sign here. And that's really, I mean, like not inclusive. It kind of sucks. And it's also, you know, kind of dangerous, although Ryan would argue with me about that point. So the the direct opposite of that is that we went to a really neat place in Colorado this past fall called Wilderness on Wheels. And it was just outside of Denver in the Front Range. And this boardwalk was completely accessible at 9,000 feet, which was cool. It was a mile-long boardwalk, which is probably one of the longest boardwalks I have been on. It's a really neat place, and I want to share a little bit of a video. I'm going to share sound and see if this works. So you can see in this accessible boardwalk that it's nice and wide. The entrance to the boardwalk is very smooth and you can roll right up onto it. And this is also really a good thing for anyone who might have balance issues, or if you know, you have a visual impairment, and having a smooth surface to walk or roll over is really important when we're thinking about accessible trails. This was a really cool opportunity that we got to check out, and there's actually like cabins that are completely accessible that you can rent, and they're only open, you know, during the non-snow season, but that's pretty cool. Accessible trail there. And I just wanted to quick point out that it's a, you know, yeah, accessible trails, like, you know, that's pretty much like the most important thing that I'd like to, like, you know, like we need more accessible trails in our state park system, natural forest, things like that. But you know what, also, if you don't have an accessible trail, that's okay. There's plenty of equipment out there to make it accessible for you. This picture right here, this action track chair, the chair that's has the white frame on it. This is an all-terrain power wheelchair. Wiscorps has a power wheelchair like this, and there's a few, there's actually an organization in Wisconsin called Accessibility Wisconsin, and their goal is to have one of these chairs for rent in every county in Wisconsin, which is really awesome. They're actually currently working with the Blue Mounds State Park Friends Group, which is over by Madison, Wisconsin, to get a chair there so anyone could rent it when you want to. Also, this is another kind of prototype track chair that I actually had the opportunity to, I've driven both of these. They're quite fun. The action track chair is really popular with people who like to hunt. It does only go awesome in the, you've seen those in state Minnesota state parks too, Felicia, that's cool. Yeah, they're really awesome. They don't go very fast, which is kind of the like bummer, but like these things are huge. If you go hunting, like it'll definitely like drag a deer out of the woods for you if you need to do that. So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to move over to my other screens, but I guess I can stop share for 2 seconds. Does anybody have any questions while I move over to the other, my other screen? All right. Hearing none, I will move on to Wiscorps, sharing screen. It's like we've, all right. Okay, so with Wiscorps, we are a nonprofit organization. We have a conservation corps and an environmental education program. And our mission is to develop leadership, self-confidence, and a strong work ethic in youth and young adults through the active stewardship of Wisconsin's communities and natural resources. There we go. So, conservation corps. Yeah, you don't pronounce the P. It's like core, like core of the earth. And our conservation corps, our program is, I would say, like the grandchild, if you will, of the original conservation corps, the Civilian Conservation Corps of the 1930s, the CCC, which the CCC built a lot of different infrastructure in our state parks in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin. And actually some of those things are still in existence, and some of the things we still use today, which is pretty awesome. I mean, they're going almost to, they're over 90 years old now, which is really great. The CCC, unlike today, only hired, young males, and they had segregated crews and things like that. But fast forward to about the 70s, the state of Wisconsin started their own youth conservation corps, and that was one of the largest conservation corps in the nation for a while, up until the program was defunded in 2004. Wiscorps was founded in 2009 by our current executive director, Matt Brandner. That's a quick history lesson on the conservation corps movement in Wisconsin. There's also other conservation corps in the Midwest. I know that Minnesota, Iowa is a huge conservation corps just across the river from us. There are a few conservation corps in Michigan, and we do a wide variety of different projects. Conservation corps, I mean. So live, work, and play in nature, and serve our community by conserving natural resources. So we also have environmental education, like I said. Our goal here is to connect others to nature, inspiring meaningful and lasting relationships to the environment. So just a little bit more about our conservation corps, our individual placements and conservation crews. This picture right here is taken from a goat prairie, which is a prairie that is located on the top of a bluff. And this is right outside of La Crosse in Hickson Forest, which is a pretty cool spot. So all of our conservation corps positions receive training in general conservation skills through hands-on trainings in the field, as well as during our training session. Our conservation crew leaders will receive certifications, including wilderness first aid, chainsaw. They'll also receive an herbicide/pesticide applicator license, as well as learn how to operate our fleet, AKA driving around a large SUV and backing up a trailer. All skills that are fantastic for conservation and in real life. Backing up a trailer is a big deal. Anyways, so these are two of our crew leaders from last summer during chainsaw training. Also, if you're looking for a chainsaw training, I can get you some resources from different areas. I know that there is a chainsaw training course, or a couple of courses that are run out of Minnesota, I think, and they're specifically for women, which is also pretty cool.
The North Country Trail partners with the National Park Service to do wow, I'm like not able to talk. They do chainsaw training for North Country Trail volunteers, so that's another option for that as well.
Oh, dude, that's cool.
If there's one specifically for women, that sounds pretty rad. I think that would be more comfortable.
Yeah, and I gotta find it because it's for like an outdoor women's organization in Minnesota. But yeah, chainsaw training, if you haven't had it before and you're looking to do trail maintenance, trail work, trail building, things like that, it's a great skill to have. It's super empowering. It is a little bit intimidating, but I highly recommend it to anyone who's like really curious about chainsaws. They're a lot of fun. So we have our conservation, crews and our conservation individual placements. These placements are kind of a professional experience at different environmental, nonprofit, and government agencies around the state of Wisconsin, focusing on natural resources conservation, environmental education, and other capacity building projects. Right now, we're recruiting for, if you're interested in trail building and other conservation projects, we're recruiting for an individual placement with Kenosha County Parks, as well as summer naturalist positions with Beaver Creek Reserve, which is outside of Eau Claire. And we have a lot of other placements that are happening in La Crosse, but we do plan to grow the program to across the state and hopefully including partners like the National Forest Service and other state parks. The start dates, like I said, very on position, compensation and benefits. All of these positions are AmeriCorps positions, which is really awesome. You get a living stipend as well as an education award after you were complete your term of service. And that education award can be applied to a future education opportunity, whether it is grad school, semester, like a fall semester if you were going to work the summer, and other things. I think NOLS, or National Outdoor Leadership School courses, also use education awards or match them. It's a pretty cool opportunity. And this is with any AmeriCorps position, which all of our Conservation Corps positions on our crews, as well as the individual placements, are AmeriCorps members. So speaking of conservation crews, really kind of thinking about, like creating the community, connecting with nature, and of course, doing the dirty work of conservation and working hard in and for the environment. It's a really kind of neat opportunity to be on a conservation crew. It's you and 5 to 7 other strangers living, working, recreating together in the outdoors for 8 to 10 weeks. Our crew makeup is typically 2 crew leaders, a crew leader and an assistant crew leader, and then 4 to 6 crew members, depending on the crew. Like I said, for the crew leader, you'll be responsible for supervising and motivating the crew members, and you'll be responsible for your personal and crew safety on and off the project site. A crew leader is a really great way to work on your leadership skills, as well as learn and teach conservation skills like trail building. If you see this crew leader in the white hard hat is using a cloud to clear off a trail as part of the project. Where was this? Oh, yeah. This is part of the Driftless Area Land Conservancy Partnership, or the DALC. And we're working with them through a series of projects to build a long trail to connect Blue Mound, Tower Hill, and Governor Dodge, there we go, state parks in southwest Wisconsin by building a 50-mile long trail to connect all of those. So you'll be able to backpack to all 3 state parks once it's complete, which is really awesome. There are age restrictions to our crew member and crew leader. You need to be over the age of 18, and we typically look for crew leaders and crew members between the ages of 18 and 25. Crew leaders, you can certainly be older than 25 years old, but we look to kind of shoot for that age range just because everybody is typically on the same page and chapter of life, which is pretty cool. And yes, super exciting to have another long trail in Wisconsin. Obviously, it will take years to build this, but it is going to be really neat. And we've built a little under a mile so far of trail, and it will be located in the Driftless region and really showcase all of the great landscapes and topography of the Driftless region. And I'll throw a couple of websites either right now or later. I'll send them to Felicia of resources and things like that. And I'll send the Driftless Area Land Conservancy's website and info page about that trail. Crew member. So a crew member, you're working on the conservation crew, and some of our projects include trail restoration, habitat restoration, invasive species management, and different carpentry projects like you see here. You'll live or camp out with your crew near the project site or travel throughout the state of Wisconsin and the Midwest. I like to say that being a crew member or a crew leader on a conservation crew is a great opportunity to connect with nature, because odds are is you'll be living outside in a tent that we provide you for the entire summer or the entire fall until it kind of gets cold. But it's a really great opportunity to connect with nature and to see different places in Wisconsin and the upper Midwest that you might not, typically visit. This picture is a crew member using a table saw as part of a bridge and boardwalk project that we built in this past summer at the Wausau School Forest in central Wisconsin. Position dates, I can end up just like show you this and then move on. All of this information is on our website. There you go, come back. All right, so going over, interesting, okay. Going over our crews, so we have 4 different types of crews for our conservation corps, and we kind of work through this, the most backcountry crew is our wilderness crew, and this is a summer only crew, and you get to spend 6 weeks in Isle Royale National Park, which is the island in Lake Superior, and you work on trail maintenance and trail building projects alongside the National Park Service trail crew, which is a really neat opportunity to try out living in the backcountry for an extended period of time. And also it's like Isle Royale. I haven't been there yet, which is funny because I have managed this program and marketed this program for like 4 years, but I hope to one day get up there. It's really awesome. It's a neat opportunity, especially if you love trail building. Actually, the national park, and I don't know if they're still on this because of COVID and things got kind of messy in 2020. We actually didn't go up to the island then, but the island itself is on like a 7-year trail maintenance plan. So our crew alongside the national park crew will move to different sites every single summer to work on the trails and maintain the trail corridor and things like that. And then the other part of the summer, the crew will come off the island and work on the mountain bike trails alongside the Schwamigan Area Mountain Bike Association, or CAMBA, over by Hayward. Now moving on to our least backcountry crew slash front country crew, our wetland restoration crew at the Indiana Dunes National Park. If you've never been to that national park, it is really cool, but also very interesting since it is in a pretty urban environment. Our crews have been working with the national parks botany staff for quite some time now. And we work specifically on wetland restoration projects, and that includes backpack spraying invasive species like hybridized cattail, phragmites, reed canary grass, removing woody invasives with brush saws, planted native species, collecting native plants, seeds, as well as habitat restoration. It's a really neat opportunity if you love wetlands, and also if you just like generally love wetlands, you should go and check out this national park. Also, our crews typically wear snowshoes all summer. This crew is not, because I think it's a little bit of a dry area, but we actually have to wear snowshoes on the marsh to get around, because it does, I mean, the water table like rises, and if you're not wearing snowshoes, you'll punch right through and might sink up all the way to your hip in muck, which is not fun, but also kind of funny. Anyways, so our roving crew, this is our most popular crew, and we do a lot of different projects with our roving crews. We'll have 3 roving crews this spring and 2 roving crews this fall. And the really cool thing is that you get to move throughout Wisconsin. So this year we'll have an eastern or an east shore, if you will, crew, as well as a northern slash western crew. So working with different project partners, including nonprofits, city, county, and state agency folks, so including Kenosha County, Ozaukee County, St. Croix County, the city and county of Wapaka, Driftless Area Land Conservancy, Lakeshore Natural Resources Partnership, and that's like in the Sheboygan area, and the Schwamigan Area Mountain Bike Association. And these projects are really a wide variety of different projects, including trail building, maintenance, invasive species management, carpentry, and tree planting. We also have a local crew that is based in the city of La Crosse, and it's actually a partnership with the mayor. And we focus on community-based revitalization projects, assist nonprofit organizations, and perform habitat restoration. This picture right here with a crew member, we're actually in one of our goat prairies. Again, a prairie that's pretty much pitched up on top of a bluff, and it is in a very threatened, this habitat is very threatened, and also incredibly old. So one little thing about the Driftless area, so quick story, the Driftless area, this area around La Crosse in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois, was completely untouched by glaciers. So there are ecosystems and habitats around here that are prehistoric, that these plants have been here, I mean, the species have been in this area for a really, really, really long time. And one of the places that hasn't been touched by colonialization and tree planting is these goat prairies. So we actually were working on, with this picture, we were working on removing sumac, which is a native species, but also can shade out native prairie plants and things like that. So we're removing sumac. And actually, when I was up here, I took this picture with the crew. This is also where Wisconsin's timber rattler snake population lives, is in our goat prairies, which is pretty cool. We actually found a baby. I didn't go up and see it, but a couple of the crew members saw it, which is pretty cool.
I don't know why I never thought that the timber rattler was an actual snake, but I just relate it to like the baseball team, the timber rattlers. It's cool that it's an actual snake.
Yeah, so there's a couple of places in La Crosse, and actually our animal care specialist that helps us take care of our education animals is actually a herpetologist on contract for the DNR, and he specializes in timber rattler snakes. And he knows where all of them are at. Obviously, he can't tell anyone, you know, because people will try to kill them, and that's a big issue. But I have seen one too on the bluffs, actually on a road to the trailhead, and it was a good like 7-footer. So yeah, they're pretty cool. But I'd like to stay away from them too. A little bit about environmental education. So if you can see, this picture is one cell of the La Crosse River Marsh, and you can see the bluffs rising up in the background. The bluff right in front of here, it actually went through some significant prairie restoration to restore the goat prairie up there. And we'll be doing some work up there this summer too. A little bit about nature teachers. Nature teachers help plan, teach, and design environmental education programs at our headquarters, the Myrick Park Center. We're recruiting for summer nature teachers. The responsibilities assisting with planning, scheduling, teaching, and the general supervision of all of our environmental education programs. Mostly focused on, we have summer day camps for kids ages 3 through 12, but we also do some community science and other programs for adults and community members. And so for more information, you can visit our website, and actually I was going to show you that. Here's our website, wiscorps.org. If you do /jobs, all of our different positions are listed here. We're currently recruiting for a full-time environmental education program manager, a crew leader, field crew member, all different things here are on our website. And then just get that down. Some accessibility resources, and again, I can share this with Felicia. So the U.S. Forest Service has some really great accessible resources. The Forest Service Outdoor Recreation Accessibility Guidelines is a book that you can actually download and as a PDF, and it is really cool. Also, trail accessibility guidelines is a good thing, but there's just a lot of different things. And I mean, like, it's more of like if you were building something, but if you just generally wanted to know about like accessibility and how to make things more accessible or to advocate, you know, with the North Country Trail Association or any other, you know, property or organization that you visit for accessibility, this is a great resource. And then kind of going down to the state accessibility for Wisconsin. I'm not quite sure about Minnesota and Michigan, but I'm assuming they have something like this. So it's Open the Outdoors, and it's a Wisconsin DNR. Can learn more about the Disability Advisory Council. Also adaptive equipment that you can rent. There's also some really cool accessible cabins that are located in all of our state parks across the state, which is pretty neat. And then speaking of accessibility, if you receive the Wisconsin Natural Resources magazine, and I can also share this link with Felicia, they have a really nice map that hopefully will be on the website soon. Fingers crossed. That's another conversation for some other time. But there's all of these different accessibility things at different state parks across the state. One really neat place is in Peninsula State Park in Door County. There's the Eagle Tower, which is a completely accessible viewing platform that you can rises up like 90 feet off the ground or something ridiculously high, that you can see Lake Michigan and other parts of Door County, which is really cool.
I think I've been to that, and it is like really beautiful. Peninsula State
Yeah.
Park.
And I think it's like a three-quarters of a mile ramp to get all the way up to the top, but it's really neat. And then finally, Wilderness on Wheels is the really neat boardwalk place in the mountains, which was really cool. Feel free to check that out. But yeah, so that is all of what I have. Do you all have any questions or anything?
I know I want to get a photo of the four of us because I always forget to do that. So Lisa, if you want to turn your video on, we can do that.
Yeah, 1 second.
Unless you guys have questions. That was a lot of really good information. And if you include those, if you send those links to me via email, I can include those in the like recording and stuff.
Oh, I like your background, Lisa.
Thanks. This is Eric Lake on the North Country Trail.
Oh, really?
I just picked a random one, but yeah.
All right.
Joe is watching TV, so that would otherwise be in the background right now.
All right. Say cheese. Okay. I always forget to do that. Does anybody have any questions?
No, but this is all like awesome information. I sometimes plan hikes for a group, and I'm always like, I don't know. I don't think like a lot of the folks in our group have signed up have some of these accessibility like needs, but it's just good to know because I want to offer that, and then hopefully more people will be able to come and sign up. So it's good to know like what's all out there, because it's not always broadcasted well unless you know where to look for it, I think.
Yeah, and that's an issue that actually our the Disability Advisory Council has been really kind of trying to inform the DNR of how they can share information more accessibly, which is kind of a dissonant, redundant. I don't know what you would call that.
Accessibility information more accessible.
Yeah, right. Who would have guessed, right? But yeah, so it's really cool. And I mean, like, even like Lisa, I'm thinking of like climbing. Like, I know some like disabled climbers have climbed at Devil's Lake, but I can't remember off the top of my head of like what routes, but like that's definitely like an undertaking to climb in Devil's Lake, because I don't think there's really any walls that are like super easy to get to.
No, I know our climbing gym has some of the gear for adaptive climbing, and I think they used to do like nights, and I'm not sure if they don't broadcast it at all, actually. I know they used to do something like that.
Boulders. Yeah, I used to run that.
Okay, I was like,
Yeah.
It's not
a couple of years ago. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I remember them used to, so I knew like either they or some group had that, but yeah, I haven't seen it probably since then.
Probably.
But that's kind of also on track with boulders sometimes, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Devil's Lake would be hard because even for like, I don't know, the average like climber, the routes are what we like to call sandbagged, so they're a little harder than they might be at some other spot. So it's already rough there, just on like a average level of how routes are graded usually. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And like I was trying to, and I should have done my research, but like do we know if the North Country Trail has any accessible portions other than like road?
I know from experience of living in Marquette that there's a long section of it that follows a multi-use pathway.
Oh, nice.
So that would be accessible. It's like all paved and stuff.
I know in Tequamanon Falls State Park, a lot of that section of North Country Trail is paved as well. But then to get to the falls is like not accessible.
Yeah, I feel like it's all like little chunks here and there in state parks and stuff, like you said with Copper Falls, and I don't know if Pattison is. I haven't really been to too much of it in there. Or like Pictured Rocks, I feel like there might be like a couple spots that are on some paved trail, but then everything else is sandy.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's like the Copper Falls is really weird because it's like it ends before you get to the like Cascades, you know, the really picturesque thing. So it's just like, oh, this is cool.
like, thanks for the thought after.
Yeah. Great job.
Yeah, I remember going there and being like, oh, cool, like they have disabled parking and things like that, and then I was like, oh, I guess that was it. I don't know. It was not as, it was not quite as, I don't know. Probably could be a lot better.
Yeah.
I think I'll take that as a note to our GIS specialist and see if we can come up with like a trail that lists all the accessible areas. That would be super cool.
That'd be really neat.
Yeah, if that's all, we can cut Andrea loose and then just do a little bit of discussion on internal stuff.
All right.
Thank you
Sounds
so much
good.
for your time.
Thanks for having me. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.